The rain fell in sheets that evening, turning the streets of downtown Chicago into a shimmering maze of reflections. Cars splashed through puddles as their headlights cut through the gloom, but most people had already sought shelter from the storm. It was one of those nights where even the city seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the weather to pass. Marcus Harper wasn't so lucky. He didn't have the luxury of staying indoors. His shift at the diner had ended just an hour ago, and now he was trudging home through the cold, wet darkness. Marcus worked 2 jobs, 3 if you counted the odd handyman gigs he picked up on weekends, and still barely scraped by. Life hadn't been kind to him. At 32, he lived alone in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, surviving paycheck to paycheck while dreaming of something better. But dreams were all they ever were. To save time, Marcus decided to take a shortcut through an alleyway behind the diner. The narrow passage was dimly lit by flickering streetlights, their orange glow casting long shadows across the brick walls. The sound of his footsteps echoed softly against the damp pavement as he walked, hunched over slightly to shield himself from the biting wind. That's when he saw her. At first glance, she looked like nothing more than a shadow, a darker shape, against the already dim surroundings. But as Marcus drew closer, he realized it was a person. A young woman, soaked to the bone, sitting with her back pressed against the wall. Her dark hair clung to her face, partially obscuring her features. But what caught Marcus's attention were her eyes. Even in the poor lighting, they stood out, wide, alert, and filled with a mixture of fear and determination. For a moment, Marcus hesitated. He wasn't exactly rolling in cash himself. Helping strangers wasn't something he could afford to do often. Yet there was something about this woman that tugged at him. Maybe it was the way she hugged her small backpack to her chest, as though it contained everything she owned. Or maybe it was the sheer vulnerability in her posture, the way she seemed both lost and defiant at the same time. He should keep walking, a voice inside him whispered. It's not his problem. But another part of him, the part that remembered what it felt like to be desperate and alone, spoke louder. Sighing, Marcus stepped closer until he was standing directly in front of her. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay?" She startled at the sound of his voice, her head snapping up sharply. For a second, she looked ready to bolt, but then recognition dawned in her eyes. She shook her head, slowly, her lips trembling. "No," she whispered. I don't know where I am. Everything's wrong." Her words were vague, almost cryptic, but Marcus didn't press her. Instead, he shrugged off his thin jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Here," he said. "You'll freeze out here. Come on. I'll take you somewhere warm." She hesitated, studying him with those piercing eyes. Whatever she saw must have reassured her, because she nodded finally and let him help her to her feet. She was smaller than he'd expected, frail-looking despite the strength in her gaze. As they began walking, Marcus noticed how tightly she clutched her backpack, refusing to let go even when he offered to carry it for her. "Do you have a name?" Marcus asked after a few minutes of silence. "Elena," she replied quietly. Her voice was soft, accented in a way that suggested she wasn't from around here. "And you?" "Marcus," he said. "Nice to meet you, Elena. What brings you to Chicago?" She flinched at the question, her grip tightening on the straps of her backpack. "It's complicated," she muttered. I can't explain right now." Marcus raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Okay, no pressure. Let's just get you dry first." They continued in silence, the only sounds being the patter of rain and the occasional rumble of distant thunder. By the time they reached Marcus's apartment, Elena was shivering violently. He ushered her inside, closing the door against the storm, and gestured toward the tiny living room. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. "I'll grab some towels." As Elena sank onto the worn couch, Marcus disappeared into the bathroom. When he returned with a stack of towels and a blanket, she was staring at her hands, her expression unreadable. He handed her the items wordlessly, giving her space to dry off. Once she was settled, he made them both a cup of instant coffee and sat down across from her. "So," he began cautiously, Do you want to tell me what happened? How did you end up in that alley? Elena wrapped her fingers around the mug, absorbing its warmth. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then, in a voice so quiet Marcus had to lean forward to hear her, she said, "I'm running. From them." "Them?" Marcus frowned. "Who's them?" She shook her head, her eyes darting toward the window as though expecting someone, or something, to appear outside. "I can't say too much, not yet. But please, believe me when I say I wouldn't be here if I had any other choice." Marcus studied her carefully, trying to gauge whether she was telling the truth or spinning some elaborate story. There was something genuine in her tone, something raw and unguarded. Whatever she was running from, it terrified her. And that scared him. "All right," he said finally. "You're safe here for now. Get some rest. We'll figure things out tomorrow." Elena nodded gratefully, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Marcus retreated to his bedroom, leaving her to sleep on the couch. As he lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, his mind raced with questions. Who was Elena? Why was she so afraid? And why did he feel like his life was about to change forever? Little did Marcus know. His instincts were right. This chance encounter would set off a chain of events that would lead him far beyond the confines of his ordinary existence, and into a world he couldn't possibly imagine. The next morning dawned gray and dreary, mirroring the stormy night that had preceded it. Marcus woke up to the faint smell of coffee brewing in his tiny kitchen, a scent he hadn't expected. For a moment, he thought he'd dreamed the entire encounter with Elena. But as he shuffled into the living room, rubbing sleep from his eyes, he found her sitting on the couch, wrapped in his blanket, holding a steaming mug. "Morning," she said softly, glancing up at him. Her voice was calm now, but there was still an undercurrent of tension in her expression. She looked less disheveled than the night before, though her damp clothes hung awkwardly on her slender frame. Marcus blinked, surprised by how domestic the scene felt. "You made coffee?" he asked, gesturing toward the pot on the counter. Elena nodded. "I hope you don't mind. I figured it was the least I could do after everything." He waved off her apology with a small smile. "Don't worry about it. Coffee's always welcome." He poured himself a cup and joined her on the couch, leaving a respectable distance between them. The silence stretched for a moment before he broke it. "So, are you ready to talk yet?" Her grip tightened around her mug, knuckles whitening slightly. She hesitated, clearly torn between trust and caution. Finally, she exhaled slowly and said, "I owe you an explanation. You've been kind to me, and I can't repay that kindness with lies." Marcus leaned back, bracing himself for whatever wild story might follow. "All right, I'm listening." Elena took a deep breath. "I'm not from here," she began. "Not just Chicago, Earth. I come from somewhere else, somewhere far away." Marcus raised an eyebrow, unsure whether to laugh or take her seriously. "You mean, like another country?" "No," she replied firmly. "Another planet. Another galaxy, actually." For a second, Marcus thought she was joking, but the intensity in her eyes told him otherwise. "Wait, you're saying you're an alien?" She shook her head quickly. No, I'm human like you. My ancestors came from Earth thousands of years ago. They traveled across the stars, settling on other worlds. Over time, we evolved differently, adapted to new environments. But genetically, we're still the same species." Marcus stared at her, processing her words. It sounded insane. But then, again, so did half the things he saw on late-night TV. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that she believed every word she was saying. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's say I believe you. Why are you here? And why were you running last night?" Elena's gaze dropped to her lap, where her fingers nervously twisted the edge of the blanket. "Because they're after me," she whispered. "A group called the Syndicate. They hunt people like me, people who know too much, who have access to forbidden knowledge." "Forbidden knowledge?" Marcus echoed, frowning. "What kind of knowledge?" Instead of answering directly, Elena reached for her backpack, which sat beside her on the couch. She unzipped it carefully, revealing its contents, a collection of strange objects that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. One item was a glowing orb, pulsating faintly with light. Another was a metallic rectangle covered in intricate symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer when viewed from different angles. There was also a small device resembling a wristwatch, except it emitted a low hum instead of telling time. Marcus's jaw dropped as he stared at the gadgets. What are these things? They're tools, Elena explained. Advanced technology developed by my people. Some of it is meant for communication, some for defense, and some. She trailed off, picking up the glowing orb. This one is a map. Watch. With a flick of her wrist, she activated the orb. A beam of light shot upward, projecting a holographic image onto the ceiling. It showed a detailed star map, complete, with constellations, planets, and swirling nebulae. Marcus craned his neck to get a better look, his heart racing. Is that space? Yes, Elena confirmed. These are the coordinates of Earth's solar system. And this, she pointed to a blinking red dot, is us, right here. Marcus swallowed hard, trying to wrap his head around what he was seeing. How is this possible? Technology like this doesn't exist on Earth. That's because it isn't ours, Elena said quietly. It belongs to civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. My ancestors discovered it during their travels, and they passed it down through generations. But the Syndicate wants it. They want to use it to control others, to exploit weaker worlds. And you're protecting it? Marcus guessed. She nodded. I didn't ask for this responsibility. It was thrust upon me when my family was killed. Now I'm the only one left who knows how to operate these devices. If the Syndicate catches me, they'll take everything, and they won't hesitate to destroy anyone who gets in their way. The weight of her words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Suddenly her fear made sense. This wasn't just paranoia. It was survival. He glanced at the glowing orb again, mesmerized by its beauty and complexity. Why did you bring it here? To Earth? It's safer here than anywhere else, Elena admitted. Earth is isolated, primitive compared to the rest of the galaxy. The Syndicate underestimated your world, thinking it wasn't worth their attention, but now... She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. Now they're starting to notice. Marcus frowned. Notice what? You, she said simply. Humanity. Your potential. You may not realize it, but your species is on the brink of something incredible. You're developing faster than anyone anticipated. That scares the Syndicate. And it scares others too. Others? Marcus repeated, feeling a chill creep down his spine. Who else is out there? Elena hesitated before answering. There are factions within the galaxy who see Earth as a threat. They believe that if humanity continues to advance unchecked, you'll become a force to be reckoned with. Some want to help you grow, while others want to crush you before you pose a challenge. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she was saying. Aliens, advanced technology, interstellar politics. It all sounded like the plot of a blockbuster movie. Yet here he was, sitting in his cramped apartment, staring at proof that none of it was fiction. Why are you telling me all this? He asked finally. Why involve me? Because I need your help, Elena said, meeting his gaze steadily. I can't do this alone. I don't know enough about Earth, about how humans operate, but you do. Together, maybe we can protect your world, and mine, from those who would destroy it. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a loud buzzing noise filled the room. Elena froze, her eyes widening in panic. She grabbed the metallic rectangle from her bag and held it up, scanning the air around them. They're close, she muttered. Too close. Who? Marcus demanded, rising to his feet. The Syndicate? Before she could answer, the lights in the apartment flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. The hum grew louder, almost deafening. vibrating through the walls and floor. Marcus stumbled toward the window, peering outside. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hovering above the city skyline was a massive ship, larger than anything he'd ever imagined possible. Its sleek, angular design gleamed even in the overcast light, and strange symbols pulsed along its surface like veins of energy. Smaller craft detached from its underside, descending rapidly toward the streets below. Elena appeared beside him, her face pale but resolute. "We need to move. Now." "Move where?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling. "What's happening?" "They've found me," she said grimly, "and they won't stop until they have what they came for." Without waiting for further explanation, Marcus grabbed his jacket and followed her out the door. As they hurried down the stairs, the building shook violently, sending debris raining from the ceiling. Whatever was coming for them, it was big, and it wasn't going to let them escape easily. As they emerged onto the street, chaos erupted around them. People screamed and scattered in every direction, fleeing from the alien ships that now dominated the sky. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the air crackled with electricity. Marcus turned to Elena, his mind racing. "What do we do now?" Her lips pressed into a thin line as she clutched the glowing orb tightly. "We fight back." Despite the terror coursing through him, Marcus felt a spark of determination ignite in his chest. He didn't understand half of what was happening, but one thing was clear. He couldn't stand idly by while Elena faced this danger alone. Whether he liked it or not, he was part of this now, and he intended to see it through. The city was in chaos. Alien ships loomed overhead, their sleek forms casting long shadows across the streets as terrified crowds scattered in every direction. Cars screeched to a halt, abandoned by drivers who fled on foot. Storefront windows shattered under the pressure of sonic booms emitted by the descending crafts. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, and the ground trembled beneath Marcus's feet as he and Elena pushed their way through the panicked masses. "This way," Elena shouted, pulling him into a narrow alleyway. Her grip on his arm was firm, her movements urgent but calculated. Despite the madness unfolding around them, she seemed oddly focused, as if this were a situation she'd trained for all her life. Marcus struggled to keep up, his mind racing to process everything happening at once. "What's going on? Why? Are they attacking?" "They're not attacking, not yet," Elena replied over her shoulder. "They're searching. For me. And for this." She held up the glowing orb, its pulsating light illuminating her face. "It's a beacon. It signals advanced technology and potential threats." "Great," Marcus muttered under his breath. "So we're basically walking targets." Elena didn't respond, her attention fixed on navigating the labyrinth of alleys. They zigzagged through side streets, avoiding main roads where alien drones hovered like mechanical hawks, scanning the area with blinding beams of light. Every time one passed overhead, Elena ducked into cover, dragging Marcus along with her. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat reverberating in his ears like a drum roll. Finally, they reached a quieter part of the city, a desolate stretch of warehouses near the riverbank. Elena slowed down, glancing around cautiously before stopping in front of an old rusted gate. "Here," she said, pointing to a dilapidated building behind it. "We can hide here for now." Marcus frowned, eyeing the structure skeptically. "Are you sure? That place looks like it could collapse any second." "It's not about hiding forever," Elena explained. "It's about buying us time. I need to figure out how to use these devices properly. If we can activate the right protocols, we might be able to." Her words were cut short by a deafening roar that split the sky. Both of them froze, looking upward as the clouds above began to churn violently. At first, Marcus thought it was just another storm rolling in, but then the sky itself seemed to tear apart. A jagged rift opened wide, revealing a fleet of colossal ships hovering silently beyond it. These weren't the smaller scout vessels they'd seen earlier. These were titanic structures bristling with weapons and glowing with an otherworldly energy. Star destroyers, Elena had called them. Panic gripped Marcus as he stared upward, his knees threatening to buckle beneath him. What are they doing here? He stammered, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and explosions echoing through the city. They're afraid, Elena replied grimly, clutching the metallic rectangle tighter. They've detected the beacon. To them, it means humanity is evolving faster than expected, and that makes us unpredictable. Dangerous. Dangerous? Marcus echoed incredulously. We're lucky if we can get our Wi-Fi to work half the time. How does anyone think we're a threat? It's not about what you are now, Elena said sharply. It's about what you could become. These factions, they don't wait for civilizations to reach their full potential. They act preemptively, either to control or eliminate perceived risks. Marcus shook his head, overwhelmed by the absurdity of it all. This is insane. None of this should even be real. Tell me about it later, Elena snapped, already moving toward the warehouse. Right now, we need to focus. Follow me. Reluctantly, Marcus obeyed, trailing after her as she slipped through the gate and into the crumbling building. Inside, the air smelled musty, filled with the scent of damp concrete and rusting metal. Broken crates and discarded machinery littered the floor, creating a maze of obstacles. Elena navigated it effortlessly, heading straight for a corner of the room where sunlight streamed through a large crack in the ceiling. She knelt down, spreading the items from her backpack across the dusty ground. The glowing orb, the metallic rectangle, and the humming wristwatch-like device formed a makeshift workstation. Elena's hands moved quickly, connecting wires and adjusting settings with practiced ease. Marcus watched in awe, marveling at how calm she remained despite the apocalyptic scenario playing out outside. "What are you doing?" he asked finally, breaking the tense silence. "I'm interfacing the beacon with the holographic map," she explained without looking up. "If I can pinpoint Earth's exact location within the galactic network, I might be able to trigger dormant defenses left behind by ancient visitors." "Dormant defenses?" Marcus repeated, raising an eyebrow. "You mean like lasers or something?" Elena smirked faintly. "Something like that. Ancient civilizations often seeded planets with hidden technologies designed to protect emerging species. Think of it as a failsafe, a last line of defense against hostile forces." "So you're saying there's some kind of superweapon buried somewhere on Earth?" Marcus asked, his skepticism creeping back in. "Not necessarily a weapon," Elena corrected. "More like a system. It could manifest as anything: energy shields, cloaking fields, maybe even automated drones. The specifics depend on what the ancients deemed necessary for survival." As fascinating as it sounded, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were grasping at straws. "And you really think this is going to work? Against that?" He gestured toward the window, where the massive alien fleet continued to dominate the skyline. "It has to," Elena said simply. "Because if it doesn't—" She trailed off, her expression darkening. "Let's just say humanity won't stand a chance." Before Marcus could respond, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. Both of them turned sharply toward the source of the noise, hearts hammering in unison. A shadow moved near the entrance, growing larger as it approached. Then, stepping into view, came three figures clad in sleek black armor. Their faces were obscured by helmets, and their weapons gleamed menacingly in the dim light. "You shouldn't have meddled," one of them growled in broken English, raising a rifle-like device. Its barrel glowed ominously, charging for a shot. Elena cursed under her breath, grabbing the metallic rectangle and standing protectively in front of Marcus. "Stay behind me," she ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. Marcus raised his hands instinctively, though he knew it wouldn't do much good against alien firepower. His mind raced, searching for a way out of this nightmare. But before he could act, Elena shouted triumphantly, "Got it!" A blinding flash erupted from the devices on the floor, followed by a deep rumble that shook the entire building. The alien intruders staggered backward, their weapons faltering as the energy surge disrupted their systems. Outside, the massive ships trembled visibly, their glowing symbols flickering erratically. "What did you do?" Marcus asked, shielding his eyes from the intense light. "I activated the grid," Elena replied, her voice tinged with relief and exhaustion. Earth's defenses are online. For now, at least, they'll leave us alone." Sure enough, the aliens retreated, disappearing as quickly as they'd arrived. The massive ships above began to ascend, retreating back into the rift in the sky. Within moments, the tier sealed itself, leaving only the gray clouds and the distant wail of emergency sirens behind. Elena sank to her knees, breathing heavily. Marcus rushed to her side, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay?" She nodded, weakly managing a small smile. "I will be, thanks to you." Marcus shook his head, still struggling to believe what had just happened. "I didn't do anything." "You trusted me," Elena countered. "That's more than most people would have done, and because of that, we saved your planet. For now." As they stood together amidst the wreckage of the warehouse, Marcus realized that his life would never be the same again. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. He was ready to face it, with Elena by his side. The aftermath of the alien retreat was a blur of chaos and confusion. News outlets scrambled to make sense of what had happened, broadcasting shaky footage of the massive ships tearing open the sky and then vanishing just as suddenly. Governments issued vague statements about unidentified aerial phenomena, while conspiracy theories flooded social media platforms. For most people, it was an event too surreal to comprehend, a fleeting brush with something beyond human understanding. But for Marcus and Elena, there was no time to process what had occurred. The activation of Earth's ancient defenses had bought them some breathing room, but both knew it wouldn't last forever. The aliens, whether the Syndicate or another faction, would return, and when they did, humanity needed to be ready. Elena spent hours poring over the holographic map projected by the glowing orb, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers danced across the metallic rectangle, adjusting settings and decoding information at a pace that left Marcus dizzy. He hovered nearby, unsure how to help but unwilling to leave her side. Occasionally, she would glance up at him, offering a small smile before diving back into her work. "We need to find the source," she said finally, breaking the silence. "The beacon activated a dormant defense grid, but it's only temporary. If we want to ensure Earth's safety, we have to locate the central hub, the origin point of the technology." "Where is it?" Marcus asked, leaning closer to examine the hologram. The image showed Earth surrounded by a web of glowing lines, each one connecting to various points on the map. "It's buried," Elena replied. "Deep underground. Based on these coordinates." She tapped a specific spot on the hologram, highlighting a remote desert region thousands of miles away. "This is where we need to go." Marcus frowned, studying the location. It looked like nothing more than barren wasteland, miles upon miles of sand dunes stretching endlessly under the scorching sun. "What's there?" "Ruins," Elena said cryptically. "Ancient structures built by those who came before us. They must have installed the core system there, hidden beneath layers of earth and time. And you think we can just waltz in and find it?" Marcus raised an eyebrow, skeptically. "Isn't this the kind of thing governments usually handle? You know, with teams of experts and heavy machinery?" Elena shook her head firmly. "No, we don't have time for bureaucracy. Besides, the less attention we draw, the better. Trust me, Marcus, we're safer doing this ourselves." He sighed, knowing she was right. Still, the idea of trekking into the middle of nowhere to uncover alien tech sounded like something out of a movie script, not real life. Yet here he was, standing alongside a woman who claimed to come from another galaxy, preparing to save his planet from interstellar invaders. Life had a funny way of throwing curveballs. 2 days later, they arrived at the designated site, a desolate expanse of golden sand broken only by jagged rock formations jutting out like skeletal fingers. The air shimmered with heat waves, distorting the horizon into a mirage-like haze. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of their rented SUV, shielding his eyes against the glare of the sun. "This is it?" he asked, gesturing toward the empty landscape. Elena nodded, clutching the metallic rectangle tightly. "It's here, beneath the surface." Without wasting time, she began setting up equipment pulled from her backpack. A small device resembling a metal detector whirred to life, emitting a series of high-pitched beeps as she swept it over the ground. After several minutes of scanning, the beeping grew louder and steadier, indicating a strong signal. There, Elena announced, marking the spot with a stone. She knelt down, brushing away loose sand to reveal a patch of weathered stone etched with faded symbols. This is the entrance. Marcus crouched beside her, running a hand over the markings. They looked similar to the ones on the metallic rectangle, though slightly different. Older, perhaps. How do we get inside? Elena held up the humming, wristwatch-like gadget. With this. She pressed a button on its surface, and a beam of light shot downward, striking the stone slab. For a moment nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, the ground began to shift. Sand cascaded away as the stone lifted upward, revealing a dark staircase leading deep into the earth. Well, Marcus muttered, peering into the abyss. That's not ominous at all. Elena smirked faintly. Stay close. Who knows what's down there? They descended cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly in the narrow passage. The air grew cooler as they went deeper, carrying with it a faint metallic tang. Ancient torches lined the walls, their flames flickering to life automatically, as if sensing their presence. The light revealed intricate carvings depicting scenes of celestial bodies, towering spires, and humanoid figures manipulating strange devices. This place. It's incredible, Marcus whispered, awestruck. Whoever built this, they weren't just advanced, they were artists. They were survivors, Elena corrected quietly. These ruins are proof of their ingenuity, proof that even in the face of unimaginable odds, they found ways to protect themselves and others. At the end of the corridor, they reached a massive chamber. In its center stood a circular platform surrounded by towering pillars inscribed with glowing runes. At the heart of the platform was a control panel, its surface covered in buttons, levers, and screens displaying streams of data. This is it, Elena breathed, stepping forward. The core system. She placed the metallic rectangle onto the panel, aligning it perfectly with a recessed slot. With a soft click, the device locked into place and the entire chamber sprang to life. Lights flared, bathing the room in a brilliant glow, while holographic displays erupted around them, showing detailed maps of Earth overlaid with complex networks of energy grids. Marcus stared in wonder as the system hummed to life. So, does this mean we're safe now? Not yet, Elena admitted, her tone grim. Activating the core is just the first step. We need to synchronize it with the beacon to ensure full functionality. But that process will take time and attract attention. As if on cue, the ground trembled violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Above, the ceiling cracked, sending dust raining down. A loud roar echoed through the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. What was that? Marcus demanded, looking around nervously. They're here, Elena said tersely. The syndicate must have tracked us. Before Marcus could respond, a shadow fell over the chamber's entrance. Standing silhouetted against the dim light was a group of armored figures, their weapons trained directly on them. One stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. You've caused quite a disturbance, the leader sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. Hand over the beacon, or prepare to die. Marcus instinctively moved in front of Elena, raising his hands defensively. You're not taking anything, he snapped, surprising even himself with his boldness. The alien laughed cruelly. Brave words for a primitive. Do you truly believe you stand a chance against us? Elena didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, she activated the core system, causing the chamber to pulse with blinding energy. The aliens staggered backward, their weapons faltering as the interference disrupted their systems. Now! Elena shouted, grabbing Marcus's arm and pulling him toward a secondary exit hidden behind one of the pillars. They sprinted through a narrow tunnel, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. The wall shook violently as explosions rocked the structure, debris raining down around them. Just as they emerged into the open desert, the ground gave way entirely, swallowing the ruins whole in a spectacular collapse. Gasping for breath, Marcus turned to Elena. Did we win? For now, she replied, her expression grim. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. As they watched the dust settle over the ruined site, Marcus felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. He was ready to face them, with Elena by his side. The desert stretched endlessly around them, silent and still after the chaos that had unfolded beneath their feet. Marcus and Elena stood side by side, watching as plumes of dust settled over what remained of the ancient ruins. The ground was scarred now, a jagged wound left behind by the collapsing structure. For a moment, neither of them spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. So, did we do it? Is Earth safe? Elena hesitated, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Safe isn't exactly the right word, she admitted. What we did today, activating the core system, it's only the beginning. It strengthened Earth's defenses, but those ships will come back. They always do. Marcus frowned, frustration creeping into his voice. You're telling me this is never going to end? That we'll just keep running, fighting off aliens every time they show up? No, Elena said firmly, turning to face him. Her eyes burned with determination. We won't run anymore. This planet has potential. You have potential. And if I've learned anything from my ancestors, it's that survival isn't about hiding. It's about standing your ground. Her words struck a chord deep within Marcus. Over the past few days, he'd gone from being an ordinary guy struggling to make ends meet to someone who had stared down interstellar invaders and survived. He realized then that life wasn't about waiting for things to happen. It was about stepping up when they did. You're right, he said quietly. We can't stop here. If humanity's going to survive, we need to be ready for whatever comes next. But how do we even start preparing for something like this? Elena smiled faintly, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out the metallic rectangle. It's glowing, symbols pulsing softly in the sunlight. With this, she explained, the beacon doesn't just signal advanced civilizations, it also serves as a key. It unlocks knowledge, technology, strategies, everything humanity needs to protect itself. Marcus studied the device, marveling at its complexity. And you're sure we can use it without blowing ourselves up? It's risky, Elena admitted. But so is doing nothing. Trust me, Marcus. I wouldn't have brought you this far if I didn't think we could pull it off. In the weeks that followed, news of the alien encounter spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to investigate, deploying teams of scientists and military personnel to the desert site where the ruins had once stood. Yet despite their efforts, no trace of the underground chamber or its technology remained. The syndicate had covered their tracks well, erasing evidence of their presence while leaving humanity none the wiser about the true nature of the threat. Meanwhile, Marcus and Elena worked tirelessly to decode the information contained within the beacon. They set up shop in a secluded cabin deep in the woods, far from prying eyes. Days turned into nights as they pored over holographic maps, deciphered alien languages, and tested new devices unearthed from Elena's seemingly bottomless backpack. Slowly but surely, they began piecing together a plan to fortify Earth against future invasions. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments when frustration boiled over and exhaustion threatened to break them. But through it all, Marcus found strength in Elena's unwavering resolve. She taught him not only about alien tech, but also about courage, resilience, and the importance of believing in something greater than oneself. One evening, as they sat, together outside the cabin watching the stars twinkle above the treetops, Marcus voiced a question that had been nagging at him for days. Why me? He asked suddenly. Out of everyone on this planet, why did you choose me to help you? Elena glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. Because you cared, she said simply. When you saw me in that alley, scared and alone, you didn't turn away. You helped me, not because you expected anything in return, but because it was the right thing to do. That kind of selflessness is rare, Marcus, and it's what makes you special. Her words warmed him more than any fire ever could. For years, Marcus had felt invisible, insignificant, a cog in the machine of life. But now, for the first time, he understood that even small actions could ripple outward, creating waves of change. Helping Elena hadn't cost him much, but it had given him everything. As word of Marcus's role in thwarting the alien attack reached the public, his name became synonymous with heroism. News outlets hailed him as the man who saved Earth, though the truth of his involvement remained shrouded in mystery. Offers poured in, money, fame, opportunities beyond his wildest dreams. Yet Marcus turned them all down, choosing instead to focus on the task at hand. Then one day, two sleek black Royces pulled up outside the cabin. Out stepped representatives of a secret organization known only as the Vanguard. Crusat. In sharp suits and carrying briefcases filled with classified documents, they introduced themselves as guardians of Earth's hidden secrets. "We've been watching you, Mr. Harper," one of them said, extending a hand. "Your actions during the recent crisis have proven invaluable. We believe you could play a crucial role in safeguarding humanity's future." Marcus exchanged a glance with Elena, who nodded encouragingly. Stepping forward, he shook the man's hand. "Tell me what I need to do." Over the next several months, Marcus became an integral part of the Vanguard. Working alongside Elena and other members of the organization, he helped develop protocols, train recruits, and implement technologies designed to defend Earth against extraterrestrial threats. Though the work was challenging, it gave him a sense of purpose he'd never experienced before. Yet despite his newfound responsibilities, Marcus never forgot where it all began. That rainy night in Chicago, when he'd chosen kindness over indifference. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion could lead to the greatest outcomes. Years later, as he stood on a hilltop overlooking the city lights, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come. Beside him, Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done good, Marcus," she said softly. "But remember, this is just the beginning." He nodded, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere out there, among the countless galaxies, unknown dangers lurked. But for now, Earth was safe, and thanks to him, it would stay that way. Little did Marcus know, his journey was far from over. The universe had a way of testing those who dared to stand tall. And when the next challenge came, he would be ready.